Alright everyone, the time has come to talk about the butterfly waifu Titania. But before that, I would like for you all to see something. That was 20 level 100 heavy gunners, and I barely got scraped. Titania may be a jack of all trades because she does have CC and she does have damage and she does have survivability, but let's call a spade here. She's practically an ace of all trades, as her survivability is insane, her damage is ballistic, and her CC is actually incredible. Personal bias exists, but results don't lie. When you have a frame that can run down level 100 heavy gunners in mass without even losing full shields, you have a strong ass frame. Now, strength is important, but how fun is she? Her main gimmick is that she can turn into an Arcwing in a mission, and that probably puts some people off as Arcwing missions are less than popular, and unlike an Arcwing, she doesn't have unique abilities tied to her going into Razorwing, and she can use her own abilities rather than getting unique abilities. But with that being said, she does get unique weapons, so strap in for a relatively long video here, because not only do I have to go over these weapons, but I also have to independently mod them, meaning I have to show a build and rationalize my stupidity with them. So without further ado, let's get into Titania. Titania's passive is that she heals herself and allies when casting an ability. This goes for any ability that she has and can even heal her razorflies, which are pivotal for their survival, and they are pivotal for hers. So it's kind of a mutual benefit that you have in keeping your razorflies alive. I'll get more into that when I get into her 4 Razorwing. Titania's one is Spellbind. You can cast it on an enemy to make them drop their weapons and float into the air. Allies hit in the radius become immune to status effects for a duration, and she can hold it to cast it on herself, rendering herself immune to status effects. If it wasn't clear, this has really only 2 uses out of the 3 that I've proposed. You could cast this on enemies to disarm them, and it's got an okay radius. The problem is clustering enemies up, although her 3 does it fairly well. That doesn't mean it does it perfectly, and if enemies kill them before you can cast it, what's the real point? So casting this on yourself and allies is amazing because granting them and yourself immunity to status effects is great, especially in Razorwing, and with her passive it will heal them a bit, so can't really complain here with this ability. Tribute is Titania's second ability and also her cycle ability. This is key to being used properly as it's pivotal to her survival and a couple of other things that will benefit your team. This is really where Titania gets her supporting capabilities, so let's go over them one by one. On cast, you'll knock an enemy back and apply one of 4 buffs after running into the spectral image that they left behind. Thorns will decrease damage taken by 50%. Dust will give enemies in a radius around you a decreased chance to hit by 50%. Full Moon grants damage, health, and armor to companions, and Entangle reduces enemy speed by 25%. Now, the range on this is actually acceptable, as the range means it will apply to a lot of your allies as well, since allies in the range gain the buffs that you have active, and the only one of these that is questionable is Entangle, as reducing speed is only useful if it reduces attack speed as well, and upon testing, I can't quite tell if it does, and I'm going to play it safe and say it doesn't, but if it does, then every one of these buffs is amazing, and better yet, this is Titania's Helmet ability, meaning after subsuming her, you can give this to another frame, which is great. Lantern grants a swarm of razorflies on a target, dealing damage per second and attracting enemies to be charmed to the target, in which they will also take a damage per second. This is castable an infinite amount of times if you feel like it, and you can hold down the key to explode any enemies that are held, and they will also deal damage to nearby enemies. This is mainly useful for distracting enemies so you can refresh your tribute buffs, or apply Spellbound to multiple enemies, disarming a fair amount of enemies, but again, I'd rather just cast that on myself for the status immunity. Now for Razorwing. Razorwing morphs Titania into what is essentially a gnat at a barbecue that you can't seem to hit and is permanently in a state of annoying the fuck out of you. Upon casting, you instantly gain 6 independent razorflies that attack enemies, you gain 50% evasion chance, and switch your weapons to the Dexpixia and the Dewata Blade. In this form, you can also cast all of your other abilities, and when casting Tribute, you gain more razorflies up to a maximum of 10, or 1 per Tribute active. The drain on this is naturally 5 per second, but mine sits much lower at roughly 1.76 per second, so running a flow or prime flow on her is actually amazing, and I would heavily recommend it if you plan on running Razorwing. And I feel like staying in Razorwing the whole mission, so I tend to run flow. Now, in Razorwing, you get 2 Titania exclusive abilities, Dexpixia and Dewata Blade. Dexpixia are auto pistols, but I'm going to put a pin in that for a second because upon testing, something is off with them. And the Dewata, which is a sword, that's it. Think of the Veritux for arc wings, but Dewata's actually somewhat useful. Dexpixia, although being auto pistols, using pistol mods, and appearing as pistols, seem to benefit from rifle amp, and I would test Pistol Amp if I had one, but it is what it is. Call it D's brilliance at work and move on. I actually talked to one of the members of Allegiant who actually helped a lot with this video, and he said that when he was testing, things came out differently. So it could have been an error in my testing, there could have been errors in his testing. As it stands, I recommend running Steel Charge because Steel Charge affects Dewata, which makes your Steel Charge actually somewhat useful when you end up running out of ammo for your pistol, but totally up to you. You can run Pistol Amp, or Steel Charge, or Rifle Amp, whatever you want. Titania's augments are questionable. It seems like 2 were designed for practicality, one is made specifically for memes, and the other one is for practicality, but it sucks at it. And that's fine, I guess, but why? Spellbind's augment, Spellbound Harvest, says when hitting at least 4 enemies, grant Titania 50 energy, and that's great for her energy to sustain because this girl pisses through energy, so it's a helping hand when you need it. Beguiling Lantern says attracted enemies take 100% more melee damage, so Lantern then flying in with Dewata is not only a viable strat, but a fun one since your damage numbers are insane. And this also counts as a support augment, as that 100% bonus melee applies to your teammates. So, throw up a lantern, allow your teammates to smack up the targets, and they'll get some crazy numbers too. That's it for the useful ones. Razorwing Blitz says flying speed increases by 25% and fire rate increases by 25% for 8 seconds after using an ability, and this will stack 4 times. This is literally only useful for speed memes, and I really don't see it as viable unless flying into walls is a new pastime for Titanias, in which you can go nuts. And Ironclad Flight disables your vacuum in Razorwing, but reduces your damage taken by 40% while airborne. And while that survivability is huge, I would never disable my vacuum in Razorwing, as companions like Carrier and the Vulpaphilas get turned off in Razorwing, so you have no other form of vacuum to use. You also have an insane amount with your evasion, the decreased damage from Tribute, the decreased chance to hit from Tribute, and I personally run a mod that makes me take less damage while airborne, which affects her in Razorwing. So overall, this augment is not that good. As far as the build goes, you need a little bit of everything on Titania, and I will elaborate as it actually took Mernivex, or Xangtech in Allegiant Discord, sitting me down and elaborating to me why he runs the build he runs. So I was using Strength as a dump stat for Titania because I like running her as a damage support hybrid, but the buffing range on her Tribute baseline is 25 meters. So running range isn't a necessity, as 25 meters is a pretty big radius. Running Power Strength buffs your Dexpixia, which is your main source of damage, so making sure to not go negative there is actually fairly important. Big thanks to him for the help, by the way. he was able to sit me down and help me out as far as hammering out this hybrid build that you see now. It's actually insane how good his Razorwing build is, and my support build combined the two, and now we have a hybrid build that I really enjoy, and I really appreciate his help here. Titania is, as I've stated, incredible. Great survivability, great damage, great CC. She just shines in all categories that a Jote wants to, and personally, I heavily recommend this frame to all players. Newer players may struggle just a little bit for her, since her quest is fairly tedious, and I think you actually need to be a certain MR to unlock it, but the payout is well worth, in my opinion. Veterans, I recommend subsuming her for Tribute, then farming out a Prime, because Tribute is amazing, and the Prime is a straight upgrade for the base variant. I would like to thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next video.